trying to define one's identity on building something new, on raising myself up, you know, from somebody at a dead level to somebody, you know, who's up straight, who's, you know, perpendicular. You know, but that attitude, it's hard to catch on. I think because of our history, you know, since the '60s, you know, it's progressed. I think it's not the days of Jim Crow anymore.
Yes.
But you have people who were alive at that time, and you know I mean, like my dad and my mom can tell you things about this neighborhood that were,
I'm sure,
you know, you couldn't sit, you know, in certain parts of the town, you couldn't bathe, or no, you couldn't swim at certain swimming pools, you couldn't go into certain restaurants, you couldn't be buried in certain cemeteries, you couldn't go into certain churches.
Ultimately worse.
You know, and you know, this is, for my parents' generation, is very real.
Yeah.
And so for me, I didn't catch any of that sort of interaction. That was a different time.
So we've progressed a little bit. I mean, because your parents, that sounds rough.
Yeah, I didn't grow up in that time.
Yeah, I don't think I did either. I'm glad about it.
So, I know, but living out my 20s in Europe, I didn't live it out, you know, much. I traveled.
You studied a lot in Germany, right?
Yeah, I traveled there extensively.
Yeah.
But again, I enjoyed the fact that it was a more cosmopolitan attitude towards race. You know, it wasn't.
That's really awesome.
You know,
great to hear.
You know, it was. I don't know. It's, you know, like even the term race. Like, what is that? I mean, how many races are there?
Right. Depends on how you look at it.
Well, I mean, much of the attitudes that Americans have about race come from the Enlightenment thinkers.
Yeah. Bright guys.
You know, like Darwin, for example.
Likely females.
You know, that they're survival of the fittest. That there are certain people or certain species that are much more superior than others. But, you know, and that's what I look at.
Eugenics, I think they call it, like cranial measurements.
Like, he didn't come up with eugenics.
I mean, it's the Aryan thought, like the Nazi-ish thought, is an extension of all that weird.
Yeah, and you know, the Nazis, you know, they sort of, you know, they incorporated a concept of other ideas and put them together to form their own racial theories about what skin color was much more superior.
It's just an odd place to go with that. I think it's a scapegoat, no matter how you hack it. It's a scapegoat.
So, as for, again, for growing up in the South, you know, dating issues, you know, I would date women who I did not share the same skin color with, and people I would go into restaurants and people would stare.
And they looked at you kind of...
And you know, it was very rude.
Yeah.
You know, and other places in a more cosmopolitan, more liberal environment, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
You know, you know, I would go to the movies, and you know, some black women would become offended at the fact that I'm with somebody who is
because you're choosing
European,
one
because they are European American.
So do you think they're pissed off because descent? So it's like a white thing.
Well, it's like I'm supposed to be a sellout because I didn't
go with their own kind,
right, or something like that.
I imagine the white people get like that too.
You know, I mean, I'm pretty sure that they do, but I mean, I'm not on that side.
Right.
Of the world.
Since I married kind of olive skin, my wife's dark, as you know. She's clearly not black. So it's like, whoa, how do I deal with this? It's much more subtle, but there is still a little weirdness occasionally, I imagine. And also, it kind of gives away the fact that she's a Jew in some parts of Europe, for instance.
Right.
And so they certainly don't like certain cities because they've said some places are really anti-Semitic, and they can tell from the skin, apparently. I don't know how people tell.
Right.
But, yeah. So it's not totally gone, unfortunately, because like, this is great to hear, because my friend who's coming to town actually told me a while back that in Sweden, we were talking over Skype, in Sweden, racism can get kind of wild.
But you know,
Scandinavia,
I mean, there is racism in Europe. Don't get me wrong. I mean, wrong. It's not something that's you know, non-existent. It's just a different force. It's a different character of race. But it has to do with, you know, where, you know, you know, what country you came from, what language you speak, your religion. It all has to do with a number of things. You know, how well you're educated, how much money you have. You know, it's such a certainly it's very easy to discriminate against somebody who's poor than somebody who's wealthy.
Though I must say, I found some of my friends, even, you don't even have to be that poor to do this, who discriminate against the quite wealthy. And I'm not speaking from personal experience, but you assume, the things you assume about a poor black person is the same, it's the other side of what you would assume about a wealthy white person.
Right.
You know, like, they're both like, oh, now I'm like, oh, okay, I have this. Poor black, okay. This guy, okay. Like, there's preconceived notions. Those are the far end.
Right.
And I agree. I think it's I mean, you are definitely, I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't want to out your religion and stuff, but, you know, our connection is like that.
Right.
You are a very rare breed in these parts. And you have kind of that's where you came from, apparently. You stuck out.
Yeah, I came, this is where I grew up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think now that we have the internet, I don't have a way to support this theory, but I think the internet will change our attitudes about other cultures, given...
Oh, yeah, it's doing it.
I mean, given that we have, you know, such... I don't know if you've ever read... there's a book called The Class of Civilizations.
No, I saw it at your house.
Okay.
I've not.
All right. But, you know, one of the things...
Sounds fascinating.
One of the things I got from this book was that, you know, in this country, traditionally, there's this history of race that was predominantly European. And it's stuck that way for all the way up until the 50s. It stuck that way. Finally, things became progressive in the 60s, and things became more liberal. And this old white power structure crumbled. And now minorities could come in and use the law and change the law for themselves. So just think of every left liberal group. You know, homosexuals, gays.
I like that.
See what else? People who are fighting for women's rights, environmentalists, you name it, whoever.
Yeah.
You know, they were now able to come forward and use the law, right, to change their environment. And so now you have this. Now that you have this motley crew of people coming across the border and from all over the world, you're having this mix of culture like never before.
Yeah, it's cool.
And it's not this pop culture perception of all American. You know, Todd or Chad. You know, all American.
Stereotype. I love that.
You know, that kind of. It's
white.
Not that anymore. It's not the typical white guy. It's multicolored.